Hello and welcome to the show. I am here on Forza 6 with another silly car build. My vehicle today is the Subaru Brat, the tiny lightweight pickup truck. It is four-wheel drive, which should be pretty good for tackling the wet Brands Hatch circuit. However, it's going to have relatively small tyres, quite a lot of power, and an incredibly light car. Likely to go, it could go very quickly. It could also be incredibly uncontrollable, and I'm not quite sure which way it's going to go along those lines. Now, as far as the engines that we can put in here, actually a pretty decent selection of engines for the Brat. The 2-litre i4, the Turbo Rally engine can go in here, the 2.5-litre Flat 4, or the 3-litre Flat 6. Yes, we can get essentially a Porsche engine in a Subaru Brat, and that is what I am going to do. We're going to put the Flat 6. I don't think I've really used this engine very much at all in Forza 6. It doesn't tend to go in very many vehicles, but yeah, we've got to go for the engine in here, and we will go for some nice twin turbos. There will be plenty of power, but whether there will be plenty of control, I am not sure. I would quite like to have the rally lights, but we're going to want the Forza Aero. We're going to want all of the grip that we can possibly get from this car. Might as well take off that bumper, save a little bit of weight. I mean, it's £2,300 at the moment, and we haven't gone through with the likes of weight reduction and so on. So it's going to be light. The Brat is going to be light, and it's going to be powerful, but we are going to have very, very small tyres. Only 205s on this thing. That's... yeah, not particularly big for the amount of power that it's going to be asked to do. I mean, it comes with 165s, which are very diddy, and these aren't a huge amount better. I suspect there will be a lot of four-wheel drifting and sliding and skidding and hopefully not falling off the road too much. It's kind of quite likely. So I think this has even smaller tyres than the Willys Jeep. That went pretty quick around Brands Hatch, but was an interesting one to drive. I suspect it'll be a very similar story. Not quite sure how much power you get out of the Flat 6. As I said, I haven't used it that much, so we may not quite be up to the 1,000 horsepowers, but it's likely to be a fairly decent amount. Going through it there. It's quite a sizable difference with the suspension. Of course, we're going to be wanting all of the race parts that we can possibly get. Try and keep this thing vaguely under control. Definitely going to be wanting a roll cage on here. I do like that it actually puts the roll cage in the back as well on the Subaru Brat. That's quite cool. Definitely going to want that. Try and stiffen up the chassis. Maybe make it a little bit better, and then full-on weight reduction. Not quite under £2,000. Maybe with some of the engine parts, like the exhaust, maybe we can drop the weight down. It's possible. Power-wise, we're up to pretty much 500 horsepower, now just over 500 horsepower. PI-wise, hasn't gone up perhaps as quickly as some cars, considering, fairly decent power-to-weight ratio is going to be had in this. That's kind of a concern for grip-wise. The weight, no, we're not going to get it under £2,000. We are going to get up to 600 horsepower, though, at the moment. The likes of the intercooler and so on will add a little bit more weight on as well. So it's probably going to be about £2,100. It's still a pretty mighty power-to-weight ratio, though, on this car. Okay, I'd quite like about 900 horsepower, if that's at all possible. I suspect, though, we aren't going to get that much. We'll have to see how much the twin turbos will add. Sometimes some engine parts can add massive power gains. There we go, 150 horsepower from the twin turbos. Yeah, sometimes particular parts can give huge power gains. That's, yeah, we're getting up there with the power in this. It's not quite going to be the 900 horsepower, but it's not going to be far off. 861 horsepower in a Subaru Brat, £2,100. The power-to-weight ratio is immense. Four-wheel drive might keep it alive, possibly-ish. I think this could be quite a scary one to drive. It may be very sideways quite a lot of the time, but we shall see. So it is here to Brands Hatch to test out the Subaru Brat. I'm going to get 6 laps around the Indy circuit to try and go as quickly as possible. Now, current target time is a 49.8 set by the Lancia Beta race car. The Brat, I think, will probably struggle to be getting near that time. You never know with some of these cars. I suspect it'll be a little too difficult to drive. Could be interesting to see where it will come compared to the Willys Jeep, and that's a 51.6, which is a pretty damn quick time for these quite crazy cars in these wet conditions. Maybe we'll see this go quicker than the Jeep. Gets off the line, gets off pretty well. Yes, it is four-wheel drive, so of course we're going to have that the benefit of the four-wheel drive traction, but still a lot of power in the wet on some really, really tiny tyres, and we can't really quite get it stopped up into this second corner. Going to hazard a guess, yeah, if I go so much as near the throttle out of these turns, the Brat is wanting to go sideways. It's kind of a weird way. I'm used to driving the high-powered rear-wheel drive cars in the rain. The way that these four-wheel drive cars kind of skid themselves off the road is quite peculiar to me. So yeah, you're going to have to be aware of that. The front end does not want to turn into a corner whatsoever. There's just absolutely... with full steering lock, it just doesn't want to get turned down there. It's skidding about the holy crap, that's 160 miles an hour up towards the second corner. That is stupid fast in a straight. That's as quick as the 250 LM. That's really very, very fast in a straight line for the Subaru Brat. But can I make the most of it? We just lose so much time, I think, through the corners, waiting to get on the power. Come on. There we go. I'm also slightly concerned about this car rolling. This is perhaps one of the biggest roll risks we've had in this series so far. It's, yeah, the curb at turn 1 can quite easily launch cars onto their side, and in the wet they're more likely to go over. So there is potential, of course, for that to be an issue. Still really fighting that understeer, and even with all of that fighting, it's still going to get up towards. That's a quick first flying lap. I believe that's quicker than the Willys Jeep already. Yes, it is, by a couple of tenths of a second. Yeah, it's a quick thing. It's not quite as balmy as I thought it would be. I thought we'd have more troubles with the Brat. In all honesty, I thought we were going to get in some real issues. The thing I think with it is I fight the understeer so much, you wait so long to get the car turned into the corner that, well, yes, you can get the wheels spinning and it will kind of do the four-wheel drift through these turns. You've waited so long to get it through, get the front end turned into these damn corners, that by the time you start, it doesn't really matter anymore. It is kind of, you're sorting it out quite easily. So, yeah, it's not as crazy. I feared actually quite sensible. I say quite sensible. It's just nothing. Does not want to turn in whatsoever down there either. It's, yeah, a little on the awkward side with that stuff. You've got to be neat and tidy if you want to go quickly with the Brat. Can't be fanning around. We're just like a second and a half on that lap with no real massive mistakes, just from kind of sliding it around a little bit out of the second corner again. It's kind of skids its way across the road, and then we wait for that understeer. Come on Subaru, I want to use some of all of that power. There is a lot of it to make the most of. That was a wheel on the grass down there. It's a little scary. That's another section very easy to cut the car off if you run a little too wide. Wheel on the grass in these conditions is going to see you in an awful lot of trouble, so we don't want to be doing that one. And then we get on the power out of this final turn, and we fight the car as it wants to go sideways up towards the line. It's not quicker that time around as we come under brakes once again. It's a pretty good car, this thing, considering the tiny tyres. Get off the curb. Curbs are bad. Oh, can we get stopped? No, I don't think we can. I left it too late. But there, we're going to get one more shot with the Brat. Acceleration is incredible in this. This is perhaps not too surprising with such power, such little weight, and we do have better traction. I can be flat out in this car a lot more than most of the vehicles. I was expecting this to be a little bit worse. I know it is four-wheel drive, but I was still expecting it to be a little bit worse considering conditions, power, and the small tyres on it. But it does a really bloody good job. Although out of here, the understeer does slightly kill things a little bit, but never mind. Right. Oh, there we go. Just fire. Just hold the trigger, fire it down here, let it get up to 160 miles an hour. The brakes are actually pretty solid as well. for getting it stopped into this first corner. It does a really good job of slowing down from such a high speed as well. I've had cars far worse than that trying to get stopped, although I've pushed my luck. Oh no, I think I've buggered it up here. Very wide, although we can kind of cut back on the exit a little bit, but we will have lost some time through that. I think it's down here. This is where we really struggle, trying to wait to get on the power through there. The front just doesn't want to know, just doesn't want to turn into these corners. It's, yeah, quite an understeering vehicle, nowhere near as crazy as I was expecting from the Brat. The craziest thing about it is, well, the understeer and the acceleration. The understeer I can deal with because it's just, well, yeah, my kind of driving style, and the acceleration is really, really helpful. We're going to cross the line at 160 miles an hour, fractionally faster, 51.3 from the Brat there on the final lap. Yeah, we ran a little deep into the into turn 2 there, but made up some time with a neater final half of a lap. A much better car than I was expecting. I was thinking crazy. I thought this was going to be quite uncontrollable. Actually fares really well, even with the tiny tyres. Yeah, got phenomenal acceleration. Brakes are pretty good, although I pushed my luck too much into turn 2 a couple of times. And traction is pretty good. The back end is remarkably planted on the road. Quite a lot of understeer to contend with, but yeah, I can manage it quite well. The time, the 51.3, will put it into 4th place, 0.3 of a second quicker than the Willys Jeep, half a second quicker than the Dodge Daytona. It is, though, still a little bit down on the Ferrari 250 LM, the Ford GT40, and of course that mighty Lancia. But it did better than I feared it was going to be horrendously scary, and it really isn't. I'm very much impressed with the Subaru Brat for dealing with all 860 horsepower. Now, though, it is time to see how fast this Subaru will go in a straight line. And that, of course, means taking it to Le Mans. Now, my expectations aren't massively high for the Brat here, because let's face it, it's not exactly the most streamlined of shapes. You know, not like the Ferrari 250 or the Mercedes C63. If we can get it past 200 miles an hour, I think it'll be doing pretty well. The Plymouth Fury is at 218 miles an hour. I think that might be asking a little too much of, maybe not. Just seeing that, okay, maybe not then. Could we get the Volvo 228? That might be too much for the Brat. We will take the aero parts off there. Yeah, I mean that'd be impressive, getting 220 out of a Subaru Brat. I will be honest, terrified of the kink at the end of the straight. Now, the bumps are pretty nasty down there. We have seen quite a few airborne, wheeling, bouncing, crashing cars come the end of the straight, and they were supercars and classic race cars. This is kind of an off-roady pickup truck, and while yes, it's got race suspension, yes, it has lowered it a fair amount, it's still quite bouncy. This might get launched up into the air, or it might actually deal with it really well. It could go either way. Never quite sure with cars like this. I'm hoping it could be really quite nice. The last car out, the Dodge, did really well down the bumps. It didn't even get affected by it. It was flat out easy, and yeah, we carried the 240 miles an hour pretty much around the corner. This, I'm expecting it to be scarier. We'll kind of get a rough sense around this turn up here. This is a horrible bumpy turn that can cause issues for silly car builds. Yeah, it feels quite bumpy in the in the Subaru Brat. Oh dear. Okay, well, we may have a scary moment to come, but for now, let's try and get 220 miles an hour. We are past the 200 miles an hour mark in the Subaru Brat. Imagine being in those rear seats now. That would be an experience and a half. We're up to 215 miles an hour. Come on, we need 2 more miles an hour to beat the Plymouth Fury. 1 more to equal the Plymouth Fury. There we go. We're the same speed as the Fury. We need another mile an hour to beat it. Come on, there we go. 219 miles an hour out of the Subaru Brat. Come on, going downhill a little bit. Get that 220. Come on, 220 please. I see it's flickering. It's 220 miles an hour in a Subaru Brat as we come up to the bumps. Well, it got a big airtime over there, landed it perfectly, and now we're carrying on at 216. Okay, Well, that's very impressive, Subaru Brat. Yeah, that jumped up properly in the air. I was kind of expecting it to get bouncing going on again, but it didn't. It just landed back down and carried on. Well done. This car has really surprised me. Honestly, I was expecting a lot more crazy from this, even in the speed run. I mean, 220 is good going. I wouldn't have guessed we'd have quite got it that fast. 220 miles an hour in a Brat. We got airborne, and it felt like a big airborne time, whether it was or not, but felt like a decent airborne time down there. Landed it perfectly, carried on, and the brakes are really good in the car. Yeah, this has been a really, really solid vehicle. That 220 miles an hour will put the Brat into 10th place on our speed board. It's not got the power of some of the high cars, and as I said, it's certainly not the most streamlined of shapes. But yeah, that's respectable, beating the Plymouth Fury. You know, the Plymouth Fury had the NASCAR engine in, quite a bit more power in it than this one. So yeah, a really rather surprisingly good vehicle, this one. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.